That's a honeymoon PJ. She looks like she knows how to handle it. I was just like, okay, she's not the type that I would mess with. That's husband material. The side characters are cheating and the main characters are oblivious because they're great people. Single Inferno season 3 was so meshy. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is CH and today I'm going to be talking about Single Inferno 3 episode 6 all the way to the finale. I had a ton of catch up to do. However, I've caught up and I have a lot to say and we have a lot to talk about. So let's get right into it, okay? We know episode 5 ended with jinseok and Minji in paradise, and jinseok is basically saying like, my ideal type is not in paradise anymore. Yeah, as to say like, I'm into you now, Minji, instead of minyoung. That shocked me to my core. It really did. I was like, oh my god, jinseok, how could you do this? Although at the same time, I was kind of rooting for jinseok to move on. Kind of grown fond of minyoung over the couple episodes that I've watched. And after editing a few more bits and pieces of videos, I realized that, you know, I think minyoung is also in the right to feel the way that she does in terms of feeling pressured by other people. So anyways, I did feel kind of bad for minyoung after jinseok said that. I was like, no. We officially move into episode 6 and Gwanhee and hyeseon are having their one-on-one, and this is a very open and honest conversation, and I actually really enjoyed this conversation between the two. Gwanhee basically tells hyeseon that he will make up his mind after he spends a little bit more time with Minji, and hyeseon is not offended or anything. She also tells him honestly that, you know, hey, like I'm attracted to you the most. However, I am also curious about other guys, which is totally fair, right? Because they're both doing the same thing. I think the transparency between the two during this process is what makes me like hyeseon so much, is because she knows how to kind of lead the conversation to get to a solution, I feel, because Gwanhee is just in general kind of bad at expressing himself if it's going to make him look bad, if that makes sense. What I did kind of like about Gwanhee and what redeemed Gwanhee a little bit for me during the scene with hyeseon was him honestly telling her like, yeah, you're the number one for me too. Like, I'm attracted to you the most as well. Because at least this is like kind of the first most transparent incident of Gwanhee expressing his feelings for hyeseon. So I was like, okay, Gwanhee, you redeemed yourself a little bit. But then I watched the rest of the episodes and I started questioning the things he was doing all over again. So, but anyways, we'll get to that later. My impression after this conversation between Gwanhee and hyeseon is hyeseon's definitely set on Gwanhee. Which is, I'm like, I don't know. I had nothing to say to that. I was like, I don't know why. Meanwhile, in paradise, we have Minwoo, jinseok, and Minji. Okay? And this is basically just a Minji and jinseok date with Minwoo as a third wheel, like on the side. He's a fly on the wall in this conversation, okay? He's basically invisible. Minji is completely like physically leaning over to jinseok's side. It's very clear that she's kind of already made a decision as to who she likes more in this situation. So Minwoo's just like, I'm just here for the food at this point. Because jinseok is way too charismatic, I think, next to Minwoo. Like, Minwoo is a handsome guy and he seems like a very stand-up dude. But jinseok is just funny. And he has this, like, charm that you can't necessarily replicate. So I think this was a pretty easy decision for Minji, I think. But, like the panelists said during this time, Minwoo has sieun waiting for him back in Inferno. She is dying. She's dying to talk to this man. So yeah, he's not really like, you know, his mind is not too here in paradise, although he's in paradise, if you know what I mean. Now it's day 5 on the island, and all the dudes are chilling in one room and just talking about the paradise date with Minji the night before with Minwoo and jinseok, and they're basically talking about, oh, like, I get why they brought her midway. She's super charming, and I get it. Like, she's super adorable. She seems like she's got it all, beauty, brains. She's flirty, and she looks like she knows how to play the game. And to be honest, I really liked her in the beginning, and I still, you know, I like her, but she started to do certain things, questionable things in the show that I also started going like, But I'm sure she's lovely otherwise, but we'll get to that later too. And this is kind of where we see Mr. Casanova. Mr. Gwanhee, his eyes starts to like dart back and forth. You can see the wheels turning in his head like, oh, shall I? Shall I? It's like, bro, you need to relax. Okay? You need to relax. I'm tired of it, honestly. I at this point, by episode 6, I was tired of Gwanhee's antics. So at this point, I was like, of course, Gwanhee, I expected nothing less, okay? Or nothing, I expected nothing more or less from him. Then we fast forward the girls' game. Honestly, these always make me so freaking nervous because I feel like you can like feel the tension in the air, even though it's probably the editing and the producing. I'm not good at confrontation. That's one of my weakest flaws. If I were there, I'd be like, I don't know, I give up. Remember how last season, I think it was Hyeseon, is that his name? He like just gave up midway through the men's game. I wasn't particularly rooting for anybody specific here, although I would say I had a bias towards sieun because I really wanted her to take Minwoo to paradise and I really wanted to see them together. So these are the pairings and how they turned out. Number 1, we have sieun and minyoung, okay? I thought sieun was definitely an advantage here because she's really determined to go to paradise with Minwoo. So I was like, she's gonna do whatever it takes. And you can see that during this battle, she's like super determined. And it's honestly kind of hot. I was like, sieun, that's kind of hot. Nice. So they have a little bit of their struggle, but sieun wins by like a millisecond. I was very happy for my girl sieun. Next, we have Minji versus Cutie. And honestly, this one made me hold my breath because Cutie kind of scares me. She genuinely scares me a little. And during this episode, she scared me even more. I was honestly terrified because I was like, how can someone be so scary while they're smiling? That's like some type of power that I do not have. It's like, how do you look intimidating while looking friendly at the same time? But what made me absolutely die and embarrassed and cringe so hard was when before Minji gets freaking wrecked by Cutie, Minji's like, oh. Then next we have Hajong versus Hyeseon, and this game between Hyeseon and Hajong made me like both of them a lot more. And I already liked both of them already. Hyeseon takes Hajong's tail off first, and then Hajong gets pissed off. She starts to go absolutely wild and starts to go like MMA on Hyeseon. She's like flailing really hard and kicking, and it's hilarious because they both look like they're having a really great time together. So it was really fun to watch. But unfortunately, Hyeseon wins this. So yeah. So we have the final round, and that is sieun, Cutie, and Hyeseon. And oddly enough, all 3 of them want to take Minwoo to paradise this time. Sieun, unfortunately, gets eliminated first during this. And then Hyeseon versus Cutie. Hyeseon is tall, and she seems pretty strong. But Cutie is also freaking strong for some reason. I don't know. She looks like she got into a lot of fights as a kid. She looks like she knows how to handle it. I was just like, okay. She's not the type that I would mess with. Yeah, Cutie wins first place, Hyeseon wins second place, and sieun is third place. And this absolutely crushes sieun because she's like pretty sure that she's not going to be able to take Minwoo to paradise today. It's election time. Cutie, as you guessed, picks Minwoo. Hyeseon picks Wonhee, and sieun picks Mingyu because she has literally nobody else to pick because her second option, Wonhee, got picked already. And poor Mingyu, the girl of his dreams, Cutie, is on a date with Minwoo, who's on a date with sieun, who's on a date with him. Y'all feel me on this? And then the next thing we see is Hajong talking to Gwanhee, and she basically calls him out and she initiates a conversation, and she says like, hey, I'm sorry for the way that I kind of like blew up at you about this whole bonfire thing. And I was honestly like, well, I don't know why you're apologizing because I don't think you did anything wrong, but appreciate the apology and appreciate the maturity that comes with that apology. So I was like, all right, love this girl, love how honest she is, love how little ego she has because she's incredibly self-aware. So I was like, okay, you go girl, but also I don't understand why you're so into Gwanhee. No judgment. Minji and Gwanhee end up having their one-on-one in Inferno, and it looks like Gwanhee is kind of like shaken up by that conversation, and of course later on we know it gets super freaking messy, so let's move past all of this and get to that part, okay? Later that night, Gwanhee and Hajang are talking. She says, basically, I'm curious about Habin, but despite being curious about him, I still like you the most.
나는 너가 가장 좋은 것 같아.
During this conversation with Gwanhee and Hajang, Gwanhee starts to do that thing that he loves to do, the hypotheticals that nobody has time for. Let's say that, Habin or Wanik is interested in you. You made it seem like it was really hard for them to approach you. So it made me wonder if she's normally the type to like build walls like that. And the thing is like, if you're going to tell her that you're not into her, the least you could do is just be honest. Just respectfully reject her instead of going in this roundabout manner that like nobody has time for. This is a grown man. And at this point, I was like super annoyed with Gwanhee, and I was like, everybody has attributes that is lovable, and like Gwanhee has quite a few of them. But it's like sometimes when he does these hypotheticals and he's constantly looking for reassurance, it's super exhausting. How much stroking of your ego do you need in order for you to be sustained on a day-to-day basis? And mind you, this is only between what, like 9-day period or something, right? A 10-day period. Grow up, just grow up and tell her what you wanna say instead of blaming them and victimizing yourself. Just a little song I just made up for him. What made me also love Hajang more in episode 7 was her pep talk to minyoung about like, girl, get real. Like, what did you do? What have you done so far?
아니 뭘 했다고 진짜. 피곤해. 나 누군 안 피곤해? 나 얘기했어. 보고 싶었어 오빠 이렇게. 그냥 그런 거 말고.
Everybody needs a bestie like Hajang, okay? Girls, boys, you need someone who will tell you the truth. Trust me. You'll be happy as an adult. You have friends like that. Wanik and hyeseon have their date in paradise, and honestly it's gorgeous and it's beautiful, and they're both gorgeous and beautiful, but there's literally no romantic spark, and I was honestly a little bored. And then we have Minwoo and Cutie on their date, and they're on their little yacht, and the date is super cute and they look really cute together, but you can tell that Minwoo the whole time is just like not 100% there. You know what I mean? Like, you can tell that he kind of still wanted to be on Inferno with his sieun, right? So I think Cutie kind of suspected that. And if she didn't, it really blows up later on, as we all know. And then in episode 7, we have the men's game. And it's basically a racing game, to get the flag. And guess who wins first place? Gwanhee, because he's a basketball player, obviously. Second place, the Coast Guard guy, Mingyu. And third place, Wanik. Because we all knew that Wanik scored first place in the squat game and everybody underestimated him. Okay, we know that he's a secret athlete. So it's after the game. Everybody kind of just has their own time to hang out before the selections for Paradise happen. And Gwanhee and hyeseon are having their little one-on-one. This girl is honestly the most like emotionally stable person ever, because she's like, I don't mind if you choose Minji. Like, I totally get that you might want to get to know her because she's new. She's like, I thought you might pick Minji or Cutie anyway. Girl's like 10 steps ahead of Gwanhee. Gwanhee is 36. She's 26 or 27, right? 26, 27. They're 10 years apart. How is she babying him? Hyeseon is secure. You see Sieun and Minwoo having their one-on-one. They're both like, I really wish I can stay in Inferno today. For obvious reasons that we can all surmise from their flirty eye contact and conversation. So yeah, they both really want to stay here and talk to each other and not go to Paradise. It is very obvious that Sieun does not want to go to Paradise. She also kind of makes it kind of obvious to Wanik that she doesn't want to go. It's pretty obvious. And knowing Wanik and the way that he behaves, I know that he is quick to catch on to things. So I'm pretty sure that he understood what she was trying to get at. I was disappointed when he does end up picking her in episode 8, which we're gonna get to right now. As we all suspected, Gwanhee picks Minji. Mingyu takes Cutie, of course, and then we have Wanik, who unfortunately takes Sieun, which I was really, like I said, disappointed in, because I was like, no, Wanik, don't be that guy. She literally said she doesn't want to go. But like I also understand why he would pick her, you know, just like for him he just wants to spend a good time with her. Totally get all of that. Comes from a good place, I get it. But also I think a lot of it had to do with like some territorial shit, which, you know, I don't necessarily appreciate. It's like she's not like your thing or whatever, and vice versa, right? So in episode 8, you know, with Minji gone off the island, Minyoung finally has a little bit of a chance to win her man Jinseok back. And honestly, there's this like flirty little back and forth going on, and they do really have great natural chemistry. And you can tell that Jinseok, you know, really likes Minyoung a lot too. And Minyoung is very open about her emotions now, and very forthcoming with it. So I definitely knew at that point, like in episode 8, that they were gonna be endgame. Like at this point, Minji really had no space to come in between. Like Jinseok was shaken up a little bit, I admit, but it was because, you know, his feelings were also kind of hurt by, you know, Minyoung giving the 4 candies out and like kind of dodging his feelings. I don't know, but yeah, let's take a look at Minji and Gwanhee's date, right? Because I know we want to all talk about that. Their initial like dinner date, when they're like grabbing drinks and eating, you know, I was a little bit bored, to be honest, because they were talking about, you know, the very normal stuff of getting to know each other, and she's pretty flirty with everybody, so I wasn't like too intrigued with, you know, her tactics. The part that really got me though, I was dying when this happened, was when she guessed properly that he was a basketball player. I was like, how the hell did you guess that? That kind of convinced me, like, did she know who he was, or did she recognize who he was and was just like confirming her suspicion? Like, I don't know, but I was just like, that's crazy. After their dinner date, they go back to their hotel room to like basically change into their PJs, and you know, Gwanhee's being like super attentive. He's like washing the fruits, cutting the fruits, like putting out the little platters of fruits for his girl Minji. So they changed into their PJs, and I died when she wore her PJ. That's a honeymoon PJ. Okay. And honestly, it was a little bit cute to me because that's just like an act of like a girlfriend who wants to look pretty for her man. You know what I mean? So I was just kind of like, oh, it's kind of cute that she would want to like look pretty for him. The transparency in her feelings and actions I thought was pretty endearing. And to be honest, I think she's getting a lot of like heat on the internet for wearing something so revealing, but it's just like, tell me you didn't wear something to get someone's attention because you like them. Like, if you say no, you're a liar. You're a liar. Everybody does it, okay? And just because Minji did it on global television doesn't make her any less of a person than you, okay? So get off your high horse, all right? During their little hotel drinks talk though, I did get a little bit exhausted from their interaction. I think it's because Minji was like, she's very flirty and there's a lot going on with what she's doing. So like when I was watching them interact, I was like, this is a lot. But like Chin-young said as a panelist after that scene, I do think that their conversation was constructive and productive. This is just my own personal opinion, or this is the vibes that I kind of got. Gwanhee gives me narcissist vibes, like probably not like malicious one, but just kind of like he's always looking for some type of self-validation from other people, constant ego stroking that you have to provide them to keep peace. And to abide to their control is like kind of yucky to me. But regardless of this, Hyeseon still likes him and Hajung still likes him, and it seems like now Minji kind of likes him too. So someone fill me in. Someone fill me in, because Mingyu will be my pick. Mingyu or Jinseok. The night before they go to sleep, Gwanhee and Minji are like walking around their big ass hotel room. He asks her to write him a 10-word letter and give it to him in Inferno tomorrow. And I thought this was like so weird and out of pocket. I was like, who asks that? So I thought that was a little bit odd. I was like, what are you up to, Gwanhee? Are you trying to test this girl's devotion to you to see like if she, you know, writes it in her blood? And the morning after their date, Minji's like putting her makeup on or whatever and getting ready, and then she gets like foundation on her pants, right? And Gwanhee's like, oh, like here, wear my shorts for now while I like wash it off for you. Because it's just like you known her for like 3 days. Let's be real, realistically speaking, right? And then Gwanhee gets back to Inferno after that paradise date with Minji, and he's in the guy's room, and he has the audacity to ask, you know, like who hyeseon was talking to last night? I wonder if she was okay here without me. Oh, I wonder what she was doing. It's like, why do you care? You literally washed foundation off of another woman's pants. Like her husband, and then you're here talking about another woman, asking her who she talked to last night. What's wrong with you, bro? A mess, a whole ass mess. Anyways, let's fast forward to the girls game number 2, which is the chicken fight, and let's get down to it, to the final, because I know that's all we want to talk about right now. We have the final, which is between Minji, Hajong, and hyeseon. This is the Gwanhee derby, as he would call it. His words, not mine.
이관이 더비다.
Hajong takes out Minji first. While she is attacking hyeseon, she falls. So by default, hyeseon wins with doing literally bare minimum with her beautiful long legs. Okay, Minji cries. At first, I thought she hurt herself, but then I realized that she didn't. That she's just crying because she's sad that she couldn't take Gwanhee to paradise, or it is very likely that she won't be able to take him to paradise. And it is completely okay to have emotions and express yourself. However, you knew this man for how long? 72 hours? And you're crying for him because why? On Inferno, after the games, Minwoo and sieun finally get to talking. Okay, literally as soon as they start talking, they start like exploding with all of their feelings that they haven't expressed in the last like 4 days.
그냥 솔직히 말하면 그냥 너 보고 싶었어 어제. 그냥 너 붙잡고 있어야겠다 그냥 이렇게. 왜?
부끄러워.
And to be honest, I was a little taken aback by this conversation too, because I didn't understand Minwoo's feelings for sieun. I didn't understand that they were so deep. So the moment they started to click, he just had this like revelation that he was just going to stick with sieun from now on. And I thought that was like so shocking, because I guess we didn't, as audience, we didn't have a visibility into his mind at the time as to who he preferred more, Cutie or sieun. But I guess, you know, that short conversation was all he needed. And if that's the case, then that's great for them. You know what I mean? Sometimes you know. Anyways, we get to Minji and Gwanhee, right? They're talking before the selections happen. Again. Gwanhee with the audacity, okay? He has the audacity to tell Minji, and this really caught me off guard, okay? He tells Minji to not wear like that teddy bear thing.
만날 때는 저 곰돌이는 좀 하지 말아줘.
안 했어.
곰돌이는 좀 약간 내 스타일이니까.
And then the audacity number 2 comes when he asks her to pick jinseok over minwoo, because jinseok is the type of person who would tell him more straightforward on how she behaved during their date. So just I'm gonna give you a second to really digest that, because just think about how weird that sounds. This is a really weird request. Okay, on top of the letter that he requested from her last night, asking her, basically asking her not to do certain things, asking her to do certain things so that he can have visibility over how she behaves in her private time. Like, what are you, her keeper? But then it gets even worse, because they're both childish at this point. Because with all of this like red flags happening, when Minji's like, she doesn't want Gwanhee wearing that shirt that's green. She doesn't want him wearing green because someone else is wearing green. And guess who that someone else is? hyeseon. She's like, I don't want you wearing green because I think the person who's gonna pick you is wearing green. Single Inferno season 3 was so meshy, and I loved it. Then Gwanhee has the audacity number 3 to go to hyeseon's room looking for hyeseon after his conversation with Minji. He's basically like beating around the bush to express his obvious positive feelings for hyeseon. Meanwhile, we have jinseok being a freaking stand-up guy and a therapist to literally everybody on the island. Like everybody loves this dude. Can you even hate him? I think it's impossible. And then we have Hajang, who's like lovesick over Gwanhee, and I have literally no idea why. And they're having this one-on-one conversation, and he has the decency to at least tell her that he's not interested. But instead of gaining points for that decency, he actually lost points during redeeming himself, because he basically spun it around as if it was her fault for apologizing to him first because it made him feel weird. It turned her off to him, but she's being low-key punished for calling him out on his bad behavior. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't know.
너랑도 그런 트러블이 있었고 하다 보니까 서운하고 밉고 이런 감정이 자연스럽게 생기더라고. 너가 미안하다는 얘기를 꺼내는 바람에 내가 좀 그런 얘기를 못했던 것 같아.
Anyways, time for the selections, right? And despite my many disappointments, guess who our girl hyeseon chooses? Mr. Gwanhee. She chooses Gwanhee. And this basically kind of gives Hajang the opportunity to like, hop into paradise. So that's good. At least he gets to go. Minji picks Mingyu. And then they all get on the helicopter, right? Minji like looks over at Gwanhee like this, and then she starts like poking him on his shoulder and like trying to get his attention. For the most part, he's definitely ignoring her and disregarding her in many ways. Our beautiful, shiny, bright sunshine person is like looking over outside the window, and she's like having a great time looking at the clouds and the water and everything. Meanwhile, this whole thing is going on, and Minji starts to cry. The worst part is Mingyu is sitting right next to her, and he sees this whole thing happen, and he offers her his shirt to wipe her tears on. Like, what is happening? What is happening? And Mingyu proceeds to tell Minji not to feel sorry for crying and that it's okay to get his shirt dirty, so like to wipe her tears off. And honestly, if I was Minji in that situation, I would have fallen in love with Mingyu, bro. I would do anything to make that dude mine after that, because that's husband material. Mingyu is highly underrated. It's because he's so stable and, you know, non-dramatic that he didn't get too much screen time on the show. Anyways, I just thought that this was crazy. I was like, girl, it's not that deep. You've known him for like 3 days. I just felt really, really bad. I was like, girl, no. I don't want to fault anybody for expressing their feelings, but at the same time, there's a line that you have to draw, you know, as an adult. Something called respect, right? It's respect for like everyone that you're with. I think especially for Mingyu at the end of the day, because that's the person that you chose to bring with you. So we see Gwanhee and hyeseon in paradise, and it's like a reminiscent of their first ever time in paradise. You know, they're in the same room, they have the same like desserts and food and drinks. It seems very clear to even the audience that like Gwanhee has pretty deep feelings for hyeseon. I feel he feels the most genuine when he's with her. I do think that there's like a level of respect he has for hyeseon that he doesn't have for the other women he has encountered so far. So I feel like that's why she has such a chokehold on him. She's like dominant in some ways. And to be honest, I really found their paradise date to be pretty cute. Their hot tub scene was cute. Gwanhee was pretty funny in that scene, and he was pretty likable, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, I don't hate him, he has good sides to him too, but then he just does things that I'm just like, why? In episode 10, we have people left on the island, especially Minwoo and sieun, and everyone's, you know, just having a romantic blast. It's the last night on the island. Tomorrow is final day. So they are just very lovey-dovey, and it's really adorable. Everyone left on the Inferno is by the beach taking Polaroids. Sieun and Minwoo are like trying to figure out like if the Polaroid has selfie feature, and they're like talking about taking a selfie together, and Cutie is standing like right in front of them but like with her back to them, and she's looking at a Polaroid, but she's not really. She's like literally just not even looking, and looking straight ahead of her and listening with the back of her head. Later in the evening, Minwoo and Cutie finally get some time to speak to each other. Basically, Minwoo tells her like he wasn't really sure of how Cutie felt about him, and in the meantime, you know, he always had interest in Sieun, but in the meantime he got to know her more, and now he's pretty clear that he likes her more. Like he's leaning more towards Sieun. And Cutie kind of goes into like older sister scolding mode.
말 잘 안 듣는 애는 좀 그래. 민우야.
그래.
조용 가만히 있으라고 했잖아.
Cutie's, mind you, 28 years old and Binu is 24. So there is that kind of power dynamic, knowing the ages, right? If they didn't know each other's ages is different. But the fact that they know each other's ages, like, I'm sure there is some type of unspoken power dynamic there. So Cutie just goes on to say, like, she just doesn't want to be an option, and that, you know, if he is leaning more towards Sieun, then he should just rather go to her. And I'll let you guys watch those clips on Netflix content for the full conversation, or even just go watch it yourself on the Netflix episode, because it's pretty intense. And I honestly was a little bit scared, and a lot of people are saying she kind of gives off Korean bully vibes. And to be honest, like, I feel like that's maybe a little too far-fetched, and I don't want to go too far as to say that. I do think that Cutie had all the valid reasons to feel the way that she felt, and she has all the right to feel the way that she feels. I just think that the execution of that conversation could have been done a little bit better. It basically made her look like a sore loser, just a little bit, you know. Her ego was basically hurt, and she kind of just like lashed out. We all have those moments where we're not thinking 100% rationally, because we're kind of clouded by our emotions, so our judgment is skewed. I do think similarly to what Jinyoung said. I think what she said was disrespectful, and the manner she said things was disrespectful. I think there are definitely more graceful ways to handle those type of situations, especially when it comes to, you know, your ego being hurt a little bit. Like, you have to be able to not project that to other people, which I think was what was happening with Cutie, and what was happening when Sieun asked to talk to Minwoo, and she's like, 안 돼. Jinseok and minyoung are mommy and daddy. Just saying. And they're really cute. I really do hope they end up dating in real life. But I do think that the way Minwoo handled that situation with Cutie was very mature. And I think he's a stand-up dude. As soon as he finished that conversation with Cutie, he goes and has a different conversation with Shin, telling her like that he apologizes for, you know, making her feel confused, or if she felt confused in any way or doubted his feelings for her. Like, he is just a stand-up dude. I was like, damn. You know, obviously it didn't work out with Cutie very well because timing was kind of weird and miscommunication and all of that. But, you know, when things are right, sometimes they just work out, you know, they fall into place. So I was really happy to see that. Then in Paradise, we get to see Habin finally. We find out that he's 31 years old and that he's an actor. But unfortunately, that's really all we find out about him. That's literally all I found out about him during that episode. He had nothing to ask Hajang, and I had no idea what he was trying to say. He kept saying things, but they didn't make sense. Starts like Habin kind of just tries to open up during like before bed, you know, but everything he says is like a puzzle piece. They all come out in like riddles, and so Hajang is like, I have no idea what you're trying to say.
뭔지도 모르겠고 잠이나 자야지.
I'm too tired to figure this out. You already exhausted me with the boredom. So everyone's gathered and they're, you know, going back to Inferno for the last day of selections. Gwanhee and Minji are sitting next to each other again. And they're literally the reddest of all flags. Like, it's just like watching like a terrible drama, and the side characters are cheating and the main characters are oblivious because they're great people and they're just trying to go about their lives. Like, that's the vibe that it gave me. I was just like, your dates are right next to you. And it's not even like that big of a helicopter, so it's like a pretty tight space. It's like, damn, the audacity that these two have is pretty phenomenal. And to be honest, if you have that type of audacity in any situation, I think you might be able to succeed. The blind confidence is honestly a little bit Admirable. Admirable? Admirable. Admirable? My husband and I were watching it in bed, and he was so invested in this with me as to how just like completely shitty Gwanhee's behavior is, and also how shitty Minji's behavior is in that helicopter scene. Out of respect for the people that you're with, the least you can do is remain civil and not to act ratchet like that. Like, let's not be trashy. Okay. After that whole thing in the helicopter and the guys are all talking and Gwanhee's like,
좀 이렇게 원래 내가 딱 첫인상만 딱 놓고 보면 이상형은 민지에 가까워 원래. 민지에 가까운데 혜선이는 너무 그러니까 결혼까지 생각하면 약간 혜선이 느낌?
진짜 대단하다 정말.
we have Gwanhee and Minji's one-on-one, and Minji starts crying here because Gwanhee basically asks, like, tells her that, like, he wants to see more validation of her feelings. And I understand why Minji starts to cry here, because it's frustrating as hell to constantly tell someone, like, oh, I like you. I like you. How much more do I need to do to show you that I like you? And to be honest, from our perspective, I think Minji has done very, very great job telling and showing Gwanhee that he's the only one that she's interested in. She gave him that letter that he asked her to write, and she's done certain things that he asked her to do, and she's been pretty obedient to him this whole time. So I don't know what more he wants. And then Gwanhee proceeds to like say stuff like, oh, my body was leaning towards you in the helicopter. Like, I can feel myself wanting to be next to you. And at this point, I started getting really upset.
네. 내 몸이 너 쪽으로 가더라고. 아 뭔가 기분이 그러니까 네 옆에 있고 싶었어.
아직 안 끝난 거야?
형.
마지막에 아니야.
But then at this point, I was like, this is starting to get really disrespectful. He was definitely playing a game, and I was like, it's annoying as hell because this man is 36 years old. At this point, I really wanted like nobody to pick him. But you know, we all know that's wrong because we all know who he ends up picking. And then he proceeds to have this conversation with hyeseon. Basically, he kind of tells her the same thing, like, oh, I kind of, but he kind of spins it around this time. He's like, oh, I kind of feel like Minji kind of has always been the one to show me more straightforwardly her affections or her feelings for me. And you can tell that hyeseon is starting to like really like lose patience with him here, because I think up until this point she's been pretty generous with him in terms of like her patience, her time, right? Her mental space, and she's kind of seen him as being like adorable and cute in a pathetic way. But at this point, she's like, what else do you want me to do? And this is basically what she says. She's like, I have no intentions to try harder for you. If that's the case, then just pick Minji. Yeah, you can tell hyeseon draws this line. She's like, I'm done here.
나는 그렇게까지 헷갈려하는 사람이랑 별로 이어지고 싶지 않아.
So she literally just draws the line, and she's like, I'm not doing this. And I was like, praise Jesus. My respect for her grew so much. But unfortunately, let's go skip to the end. And we know that Gwanhee ends up choosing hyeseon because hyeseon ends up going to get chosen by him. All three of those women, Minji, Hajang, and hyeseon, they all go to Gwanhee at the end. And hyeseon ends up being chosen by Gwanhee, and they leave together. And I was just like, I really expected hyeseon after that conversation to not pick anybody, to end up just leaving alone. And I honestly would have preferred all of them leaving alone because like trash. And we know the final pairings is minwoo and sieun and minyoung and jinseok, obviously. Yeah, to be fair, like, although there were lots of things about Gwanhee's behavior that ticked me off, I do think that he made this season his season. You can't deny that the dude was entertaining, and although I think he's a little like lost in terms of like what he wants or how to navigate those emotions of his, I don't think he has malicious intent to hurt anybody. And I think that's pretty clear when we see that like final bonfire scene with all of them talking about their experiences and how thankful they are, and hyeseon starts to give her speech and she starts to cry, and then she goes like this, and then Gwanhee also starts going like this. I think that's like kind of the moment I thought that he's gonna end up choosing her, because during that conversation, that last conversation they have that night, you know, he's basically like thanking her for being there and, you know, being one of the kindest, warmest people that he's ever met. And a lot of people, and including my husband, assumed that this was kind of like a farewell thing. But for me, it kind of seemed more like a solidifying conversation for himself. He needed to see her one more time just to kind of like for sure know and like, you know, put a stamp in his head like, yeah, okay, for sure I do want to just be with her. And to be honest, like, no hate, real hate to Gwanhee. Part of me thought that he was like acting, that this was scripted. It had to be. I was like, this has to be scripted. Nobody can be this dense. Can they? I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed Singles Inferno 3. So yeah, I am looking forward to the next Singles Inferno season 4. I don't even know if that's going to be a thing, but if it is, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you to all of you for watching Singles Inferno 3 with me. I do have my Singles Inferno 2 reactions up on my channel, and there's a playlist for that, so I will link it here at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.